You want to know why the government is able to mentally control you? Because you've got somebody out there telling you to pay taxes. And yet the Christ tells you, make no covenant, make no league with these people. Do not have idols, wooden idols that you worship. Those are called paper contracts. Your failure to understand this is probably why you're in a alley. Paul tells me to do this, but, all the stuff the government's doing, Paul says, obey your principalities and magistrates. Do whatever the government tells you to do, and yet you're complaining that the government is doing bad things to you. Now, that doesn't make sense to me. If the government is so good, why are you complaining about it? Why are the listeners of Republic Broadcasting, why are they the ones that have the hairs on the back of their necks standing up? And yet a whole lot of people that listen to, this network and other networks, they don't understand why they're having problems. It's because their preachers have pacified them. Made them into a situation that, hey, the preacher says it's okay to do this, but, we need to elect somebody else. How are you going to elect somebody else? When all the elections, if you study the elections in this country, they're as rigged as blankety, blankety, blank. You can't elect somebody. And where in the Father's law does it say to elect a king, a president? Where does it say that I or you are intelligent enough to elect a Congress to change all the laws? Where does it say that we can put in a bunch of laws that are in total conflict with the Father's law? If you start and you begin to understand the false prophet, when you understand how you've had decades and decades, and I'm going back to your parents and your grandparents, because guess what? My parents and my grandparents and probably my great-grandparents, they all thought Paul was a good guy. But in the latter days, if we read in the Old Testament, it says the Lord shall work wonders. And he's going to allow us to learn things. And when we learn these things, we're going to go, oh, did I really do this? Am I doing it right now? This is not right. And then you got to search for the root cause. I gave you the root cause in modern history. Modern history began with the death of the Christ on a cross. That's modern history right then. And for 2,000 years, there have been limited uprisings, if you study history, of people that have said, wait a minute, something's wrong with Paul. Well, why don't you check with your indoctrinated priests and preachers and find out whether or not, when they're in seminary school, whether or not they take a course of how to counter the anti-Paulers. Now, why in the world, if Paul's such a great guy, why do they actually have courses to counter anti-Paul? So, through the course of 2,000 years, there's been these limited, as Keith says, idiots like me that stand up and say, wait a minute, Paul is saying the opposite of what the Christ says. Here, and here, and here, and here. Now, are there places that you can find where Paul says almost the same thing as the Christ says? Sure can. But you know what? You see one thing here, sort of like the Christ. Over here, it's directly the opposite. Is this not called double-mindedness? Is this not called speaking with a forked tongue? Somebody that is telling you the truth is going to be right down the line. All right, I've got a caller from New York. If they'd like to come on and visit, please come on.
Hello, Jerry, Kirk. This is Dean Sandstrom in New York. How are you tonight? Blessings to you all.
Well, just trying to work through a difficult subject with folks, and I'm sure for a lot of people this is quite foreign and quite upsetting.
Oh, I can well imagine, sir, absolutely. I just wanted to call to say, great job, Jerry. You hit it spot on. I'm really surprised in a way, to be quite honest with you. I knew that you were extremely intelligent and astute regarding the law and the 14th Amendment, but I just have to say to you, job well done on spotting a traitor in the Bible.
Well, I sure appreciate that. I will, it's kind of bad on my part, but I'm not very intelligent, or I would have discovered this before I was 42.
Well, I came upon this some time ago, and I don't want to get too involved with it at this point. I can send you some additional information through your email.
I don't have an email, but I got a home telephone, and you're welcome to call it, and I'll give you an address, or, you can look on Freedom School. I've put my phone number out there, and I have put my address out there, but I'd be happy to receive more information.
Yeah, and this is regarding our Mr. Paul of Tarsus and his background, and I'm sure it'll be quite revealing to you. And again, I'll just keep this short. And again, I just want to say thank you very much. And you are doing something that is very difficult. And I just want you to know there's at least one person here in New York who's just saying, good for you, Jerry. Thank you very much for sharing this information. It has to be done.
I appreciate it. And I do know that over the years I've had individuals that have learned this, and they have said to me, now I understand why we have so many problems. I've had individuals be vehemently and very expletively speak about me for as much as 5 years, and then they say, I learned it, and, this is terrible that I didn't know this, but now I know it. It's something that we have to get past, and we have to understand it. Once we understand it, we can get rid of that type of philosophy, and we can go back to studying the Father's law.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you have to tell the truth, and we have to follow God's law. And if that offends a few people, well, let them think about it over time, and like you said, maybe they'll come around to the truth one day.
Yes, and those that have eyes and ears that are going to open their eyes and ears, some of them haven't all the way opened them yet, and I haven't got mine all the way open, but I want to get eyes wide before this is over. And but you've got to, if you don't have eyes and ears, you will not see this. But I thank you very much for the call. It's very nice to have a little bit of support on a tough issue.
My pleasure, and the thanks go to you, and the blessings go to everyone. And thank you so much, sir. Have a good night. Hope to speak to you soon.
Okay, great. Give me a holler anytime in the evening you want to.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to tell you that when I learned this about Paul, I cried. I boo-hooed. I had cold sweat. I had hot sweat. I begged to die. I begged the Lord to kill me. Because at the time I learned this, I could not find anybody else that was talking about this subject. And I did not want to do this job. And I got into it, and I said, my goodness, this is just a small part of the job. There is so much more to learn. There's so much more to share with people. We're getting ready for a little break, so please come on back for the wrap-up, please. Welcome back to the Gathering Offering, ladies and gentlemen. I have 3 callers, and I cannot get the 3 callers in 4 minutes. So I'm going to take the first caller, William from Missouri. And William, come on the air and visit a little bit, please.
Hello, Terry.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm actually doing very well. Last week or so has been a tremendously productive week, gotten all kinds of things done, and, so I'm a happy camper, actually.
That's good. That's good. I'd like to comment on your coverage over Paul. I'm in full agreement of what you've discussed within the past couple hours, almost couple hours. One of the things I've also noticed is in Acts, how it elaborates about when Christ met with the 11 disciples, how it added in 2 witnesses, and their names being Justus and Matthias. And I don't know, is that the same Matthias as like the son of Caiaphas?
No, if you'll check and study in there, you'll find that Paul appoints 12 disciples to create his own group of 12 underneath him. And you'll find, if you keep studying the names, that you have somebody called Simon Pethor and Simon Niger. And he is confused many times with like Peter. And you'll find that the Matthew that Paul puts in many times, you have to, Bartholomew, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Paul's people change their names all the time. Are there any people that seem to change their names every few generations in our society today? Yes, there are. And so there's a lot of name changes that go in to confuse people in tracking this name, this name, this name, because they change their names so many times.
I just thought it was very strange how the accounts with what Paul described with the Christ meeting with the disciples, 11 disciples, how it varied so much from the actual disciples who were Matthew, James, and John, and how his varied so much and added more detail, yet he was an apostle. He supposedly came at a later date. So it kind of led suspicion there for myself.
Well, actually, if you read Paul even admits that he has blow-ups with James and other apostles, and the other apostles didn't want anything to do with him, and then Peter goes over there and starts, breaking bread with Paul. And, then Peter sort of, was able to convince a few of the apostles to hang around Paul. And you just have to get in and read this stuff in great detail, and nobody's going to get it in 5 minutes or 1 hour. You got to make it a work. William, I'm not trying to be short with you. We're going to go back sometime in the future onto this subject of the false prophet, but I've only got about 60 seconds left to tonight's program. So I'm going to beg off, and we'll get back to this subject at a later time. If that's okay, William, please?
That's fine with me. You have a great night.